Thank you for being here this evening. The hardest working content provider online. Your host, Rob Noor. I don't know. I can't back that up. I claim to be the James Brown of crappy online content, but more like the Sam Kinison, I would say. 223, Patriot Art, Freebird, thank you all for being here. Mucho appreciated. I hope everyone had a wonderful, wonderful 4th of July. No matter where you lean politically, I think it's a time to celebrate what makes this country so great. I hope you realize what makes this country so great. And I got to do my radio show on my birthday, which happens to be the 4th of July. 36 years old now. I figure I lived till 70, so I'm more than halfway. I'm on the decline now, but that's okay. I had a great 4th. For those of you wondering what I did on my birthday, I got to do my radio show in the morning, which I got to read the Declaration of Independence to kind of defend why this is the greatest country in the history of the world. And then I got to go kind of not think about politics, have fun with friends and family. It was great. Got to watch some great friends of mine try to launch fireworks from a roof. That was fun. No one got hurt, so a positive. And then today I relaxed and watched the magnificent cinematic masterpiece, Weekend at Bernie's. So a great birthday all around. So living in America, baby. When they talked about a black national anthem, look, that's stupid. But I could have forgave if it was going to be living in America. It's like, James Brown nailed it, man. That's iconic. Just Apollo Creed coming down in the red, white, and blue, dressed like Uncle Sam. Unfortunately, he lost to the Russian in that fight. But hey, James Brown was on point. I'm lagging bad. Apologies if that's the case. There's nothing I could really do until, unfortunately, probably... Well, 1 second. There might be one thing I could do. Give me 1 second. Let's see if a direct connection helps. Hopefully that speeds things up a little. Yeah, I apologize. I explained. So I'm trying to get this new computer, which should solve a lot of these lag issues. Unfortunately, though, the problem is, yes, because of COVID, parts are having difficulty getting in. So now it's looking like it might be delayed until the end of August or end of September even. So I'm sorry. Try to bear with me while you can. Justin the Rabbit, adjusting him. So, but yeah, I had a great 4th, and I hope everyone else had a great 4th. Hopefully the audio is coming through, and it's just my beautiful face that's lagging. I know. Just think, though, once I get this new computer, my face will be so much clearer. You'll get to see all the little blemishes. I know it's hard to believe someone as beautiful as me has blemishes, but it's true. So, what to talk about today? So, I thought that it would be worth, if you saw my roadside rambling, kind of talking about the reaction from a lot of the people on the left to the 4th. And then I also have a recommendation to cowardly Republicans on how they could start to defend this country and defend against the horrible organization which is Black Lives Matter. So, that's what I'll be doing today. So stay tuned for that. Kanye, you want to talk about Kanye? Kanye running. I mean, Kanye, look, I'll give my piece on Kanye real quick. Congrats to Kanye for being his own person. Like, he's certainly that. I think the guy's crazy in a lot of what he does. You know, just as an artist. Like, you remember when he took the mic from Taylor Swift and stuff like that? It's like, But I think he's right to point out that oftentimes, as a black celebrity, you're expected to go along with this victimhood culture, and he doesn't really see it. And there's other black celebrities that kind of feel the same way. I've seen Lil Wayne kind of say that, you know, in his life, he was saved in a terrible situation from who? A white police officer. I saw, who did I see today? I forget the gentleman's name. Maybe we'll watch a little of his video later. But a rapper that just talks about the, you know, how this kind of message of Black Lives Matter's off. So, yeah, I'd definitely be voting Trump, not Kanye. But we'll see. It'd be interesting to see politically. Does he take votes away from one side or the other? Yeah, I heard about the NFAC. I forget exactly what it stands for, but it's basically just like, right, Black Panthers that I think they want Texas. This is true. I've been saying this with the Black Lives Matter movement. They're pushing for segregation. They want a return to Jim Crow. That's what they want. It's just they want to be the people in charge. That's it. And guess who's totally on board? The white nationalists. The white nationalists totally agree with the message of Black Lives Matter. I told you about this debate I had the other day. Wasn't really a debate, just a discussion when I'm having with someone. And I said, look, one of the things is traditionally countries were based on ethnicity. So you had the English, England for the English, France for the French, Spain for the Spanish, etc. The United States was different. It said that we're going to be a country based on something aside from just ethnicity, which is great. I think that's a great thing. But you still need to have cohesion of some sort. So in the United States, what does it mean to be an American? We have to have an idea of what it means to be an American and have some sort of shared cultural value, or it's hard to keep a coherent country. And to me, being American means the idea of personal liberty and personal responsibility and embracing the ideas of individuality and particularly the Bill of Rights and all of those rights that we have, your right to free speech, your right to defend yourselves. So personal liberty and responsibility and those Bill of Rights protections, embracing those ideas, I think is what makes us American, regardless of your religion, your skin color, etc., your sexual preference. If we say no, and ultimately the idea that all men are created equal. Now, of course, the United States continues to fall short of that goal and has fell short of that goal in terrible ways throughout its history. But it's only it only looks horrible when you compare it to utopia. When you understand that the number one aspect of the human condition is failure, that we refuse, we're incapable of living up to our limitless potential. We're constantly striving to get better. That's a good thing. That's also an American value. And so, there have been bad things that have happened in this country, and it's worth talking about, but it's still the greatest country in the history of the world. And we're still based on that idea that we judge people by the content of their character, that all men are created equal, etc. This gentleman disagreed with me. He happened to be black. He said, I don't believe that. I don't believe that that's a value of the United States, that all men are created equal because of slavery. And I said, well, yeah, slavery was not living up to that, but that's just like saying, I'm a Christian and there are Christian values. Of course, I don't live up to them, right? Like every Christian knows that. You have, the person that you're supposed to model your life after, Jesus. And again, I'm not super religious, don't get me wrong. So if you're in the chat and you're like, I'm just using this as an example. With Christians, you model your life after Jesus, but no one will ever live up to Jesus. But that doesn't mean those aren't the values that you should aspire to. Same as America, But this person disagreed, and I said, well, then what do you think brings us together as Americans? And he said, nothing. And I said, then how can we live together as a country? He said, we probably can't. That's segregation. That's black nationalism. That's what many, many people running BLM want. That's what the Nation of Islam wants. And again, I'll go watch my video. Only person in the country, as far as I know, that's consistently talking about the Nation of Islam, ran by Louis Farrakhan, black nationalist. They hate the Jews as much as the neo-Nazis, say that they're termites right before the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting. Been responsible for the increase of attacks on Jews in New York City that none of the liberal media wants to touch. Because it's not Trump supporters beating up Jews, so they don't care. That's what they want. They want a black nationalist state. And of course, when it's endorsed by all the corporations and all the institutions, of course you're going to see more and more radical voices come out. Because here's the truth. I tell you this all the time. Some people, I try when I'm debating someone personally to assume they're arguing in good faith. And I think that's a good lesson that you should try to do. Right? But many times people that are leading these agendas won't come right out and tell you the truth. For example, they'll try to obfuscate and claim that, oh no, when we're talking about bringing down statues, it's just Confederates. That's not what's happening. Jefferson, George Washington, Theodore Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, Frederick Douglass. They're all coming down. Oh, it's all peaceful protest. That's not what's happening. BBT says on Twitch, all lives don't matter unless black lives matter. That's true. But I guess all lives don't matter unless white lives matter. And all lives don't matter unless Asian lives matter. And Hispanic lives. And men lives. And women lives. The idea is that all people matter. That's what the statement of all lives matter is. And look, the fact that we're so Orwellian that we claim that that's somehow a racist phrase is absurd. Again, the reason that this first came up is because are the people that are running Black Lives Matter. Not the person that might be marching in the street, the average person, but the people that are running it. Do they really think all lives matter? They say, of course we do. Of course. We just feel that due to the situations we're seeing in policing that there's a question as to whether or not Black Lives Matter. But if that was the case, then why aren't you focusing on the 7,000 homicide victims that are black every year? The majority of which are black on black crime. Oh, we talk about that. No, they don't. Imagine you had 9 unarmed blacks shot by the police last year. 98% of Black Lives Matter is talking about those issues. Compare that to the 7,000 that were victim of homicide, and maybe 2% of what Black Lives Matter is talking about that. So why are you focusing so much? Is it because you could make political hay? Of course that's what it is. And Black Lives Matter also endorses the idea of original sin against white people, that white people are inherently evil. Don't worry, I'll show you some quotes later tonight to prove my point. Why do I think white lives don't matter, or men lives don't matter, or women are... I don't think that. I think all lives matter. That's the point, including black lives. In fact, much of my disagreement with Black Lives Matter is that the solutions they're offering will be markedly worse for inner city black Americans. For example, every time police pull back from these major metropolitan areas, we see an increase in homicides. We're seeing it right now. Did you see? We'll talk about the story in Atlanta where an 8-year-old black girl was shot to death. Why? Because police are just saying, okay, fine. At the very Wendy's where Rayshard Brooks was shot, was where this girl was shot. Why do I think Black Lives Matter doesn't believe all lives matter? Because so many people that are endorsing it are writing like defund white people. They're embracing a book called White Fragility. They're embracing the idea that white people are somehow imbued with original sin because of things their ancestors did. I'm not saying that the average person on the street that's at a BLM protest doesn't think white lives matter, but why, when we see such vitriol directed against white people, for example, we saw Colin Kaepernick, one of the big spiritual symbols of Black Lives Matter. We saw him say about the 4th of July, oh, I won't celebrate, it's a celebration of white supremacy, blah, 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 blah. Does that sound like a group that thinks white lives matter? That's like, and again, Black Lives Matter, again, it's just a clever rhetorical trick. It's like Antifa. Oh, you disagree with Black Lives Matter? Well, then you don't think Black Lives Matter? Of course I think Black Lives Matter. I disagree with the movement. I think that their policies and their suggestions and the way that they're using violence and intimidation to silence people is wrong. But of course I think Black Lives Matter. I would never deign to say, oh, if you say all lives matter, you don't think white lives matter. If you say all lives matter, you don't think Hispanic lives matter. And an even better example is, again, the disparity between whites and blacks in the criminal justice system. There is a disparity. Now, I think that we could look at the reasons behind that, and racism could be a potential reason. I would debate that. But certainly we could see things like cultural reasons. We could see things like that, so much crime occurs in some of these inner city black neighborhoods, which probably is the best indicator that there'll be more violent reactions with the police in those areas, etc. But even bigger than that disparity is the disparity between men and women and how they're treated in the criminal justice system. So when you say Black Lives Matter and you don't signal out men, are you saying that men lives don't matter? If men are the group that we could see are most negatively affected by the criminal justice system, the disparity between men and women bigger than the disparity between white and black, does that mean if your movement is only saying Black Lives Matter instead of black men's lives matter, does that mean that you're bigoted towards men? Of course they'd say no. Then why would saying all lives matter be bigoted towards black? Yeah, I agree, BBT. I'm not saying it's genetic or anything like that. Of course, poverty, I've gone through the reasons many a time in here, why there's so much criminality. And first off, I think marking it based on race is a mistake, because I would like to see the figures. To me, it's not everyone involved in the black race. In fact, it's a very small percentage. It would be young adult black males, but not just young adult black males in these cities, right? I don't think that these numbers would bear out in suburbia or rural America, that you would see, the crime numbers for young adult black males anywhere like they are. So it's more of these communities. And you're talking about intense generational poverty in areas with huge population density. So that type of stuff makes crime far more inevitable. And we should, as a country, figure out ways to be able to improve that. I think both parties have done a disastrous job and helping inner cities when it comes to this poverty and crime that occurs there. But that explains a lot of the violent interactions with the police, and Black Lives Matter seeks to cloud over that and just say, no, it proves that there's systemic racism with policing, and I just don't see that. So, anyways, let's move on real quick with the 4th, and then we'll get to more of that here. I thought Trump's speech the 4th of July was fantastic. I really did. Now, was it conciliatory, as some would have liked? Maybe not. Maybe he should have reached out more to Democrats. I don't think so. I'm sick and tired of having to kowtow towards basically terrorists that want to start a Maoist communist revolution in this country, and then their globalist masters in corporate America and in established America that seek to set up this sort of fascist globalism. And just your daily reminder, if you're watching and you're a supporter of Black Lives Matter, just know the fact that the very groups that you should hate the most, the establishment, corporate America, all of these wealthy people, that instead of protesting them, they're on your side. Just know you're just a useful idiot to them. And as soon as you help them achieve political power, they're going to kick you to the curb. Just know that. You think electing Joe Biden, you think that that's going to make things better for you? The revolution, brought to you by Starbucks and Nike. I feel so bad. I feel so bad for you people being duped so strong. Black Lives Matter is a group. They're being ran by people that are suggesting protest and rioting in inner city black communities. Not in Martha's Vineyard, not in Hollywood, not in Beverly Hills, but in poor black communities. Burn them down. And then, who do they seek to direct their protest against? Average, everyday Americans. And they're allied with the very corporations that they should be furious that through their lobbying are screwing over working Americans of all colors. We must be on the right side. The NBA, they're going to put Black Lives Matter on the side of the court. And they're so noble that they stood up for the Hong Kong protests. Oh, wait, I'm sorry, what's that? No, they stood up with the authoritarian regime cracking down on the Hong Kong protesters. You got it. Silly stuff. What's up, WZ? Hey, thanks, Scotchka. I think you really make your point when you insult my weight or throw around the F word. Really makes your point. Yeah, I would make you look like a fool, I'm sure, if you came on my show, just like the rest of you. So, Scotchka, I'm guessing, is probably from a group from someone that I was on a debate with recently, and then started following me on Twitter. And people like Scotchka, they're unable to come up with formulate thoughts on their own. So what they do is they travel around in these little groups where they think they're like really intellectual and cool because they all sit around talking about how great Marxism is and no one ever disagrees with them. And then when one person does come on and disagree with their whole group of 30 or 40 at a time, they don't really have anything to say. So they just say things like, oh, you just want to say the N-word. Oh, you're a racist, or you're dog whistling to racism. And then they have their little Twitter followers, come and try to talk to you on Twitter, but they don't really say anything. Just insults and stupidity. So thank you, Scotchka. If you would like to come look at Scotchka's great intellectual work that he's doing on YouTube right now, feel free to jump on YouTube and see what he has to offer. Just more drivel from the average leftist. And you know what's sad, Scotchka? You actually make your side look bad because there are people on the left who maybe I disagree with, but they're capable of putting two coherent thoughts together, unlike yourself. So thanks for joining, though. Thanks for being here. No problem at all. Right, and Samus Tech on Twitch. I try my best not to be an echo chamber, which is why I try to talk to people so often on the other side. I do it on Twitch all the time. Twitch is overwhelmingly, at least in my experience, a left-wing platform. I don't care. I'll go on in good faith and discuss things with the left-wingers. In fact, I'm having a debate tomorrow with someone who's on the left, which hopefully is a productive debate. It'll be on Twitch, on Dylan Burns TV on Twitch at 8 o'clock Eastern, and it'll be on intersectionality. So Scotchka, I don't think you know what the word triggered means. Me pointing out your stupidity is not being triggered. You see how I laughed when I was doing it? I'm having a good time doing it. I'm not triggered at all. So thanks for being here. Perhaps you're triggered, having to say that someone that points out the flaws in your arguments and your stupidity is triggered. Sounds like someone who's got a little low self-esteem there. Hey, but you keep trying, Scotchka. You'll come up with something original first. By the way, I don't mind people insulting me. I just wish they'd come up with something original. Which oftentimes, we know that most of the left can't meme anyways. They also can't do comedy. So, Thanks for being here, Scotchko. Really appreciate it. Hey, thanks everyone on D Live. So, yeah, that's sort of the problem with Black Lives Matter, I think. And I'll get to how to deal with them for cowardly Republicans that are afraid to get into a discussion because they'll be labeled racist. There is a... yeah, right, Patriot Art. There is a way that I'll get to that cowardly Republicans that are afraid to talk about race can do. Let me say real quick, though, if you're watching on the left, I understand if you're someone who cares about inner city black communities, I could see being upset at the Republican Party. I can. And I'll back this up. I'm someone who ran as a Republican. When I talked about reaching out to communities that don't traditionally vote for Republican, such as young people, single women, inner city communities, I was told by some people in the Republican Party that we only go after low-hanging fruit, that we're trying to drive up the base and not reach new people. And that is a terrible, horrible mistake. Not just strategically for the Republican Party to be able to get more seats, but it's also a mistake in what's more important, and that's morally and what your job as a leader is. See, I'm going to be running for office in 2022 again, and if I win, I'm not just representing the people that voted for me, I'm representing everyone, all of my constituents. And so I think it's incumbent on anyone who seeks to be a leader to be reaching out to all communities and saying, look, even if you don't vote for me, I want to hear from you, and I want to explain to you why I think that the policies and the ideology that I have would be good for your community. So I do understand the criticism of the Republican Party. I just think that the Republican parties aren't doing anything for a lot of these communities, and the Democratic parties are thereby controlling politics in these communities, and it's making things a disaster. So it's incumbent on us, whether you be Republican or independent, or even if you're a registered Democrat, to start advocating for serious change that could help these communities. I really do think that's the case. No, I'll be running for federal office. I'll be running for Congress in 2022 in Pennsylvania. I don't know what my district will be yet because I'm assuming after 2020, the census will mean that Pennsylvania is going to be redistricted. But currently I live in District 15, and I ran for Congress in a special election in District 12 in 2019. Thanks for asking, though, BBT. So, yeah, that's kind of my take. Now, what I wanted to talk about the fourth was, just real quick, since I've kind of gone longer on this segment than I thought I would, I think that one of the things that happens often is when you're engaged in debate with a lot of people, sometimes it's in good faith. People just want to point out the good things or the more reasonable things that are happening on their side of the aisle. But sometimes I think people purposely obfuscate and they want to cover up the truth that we can see that's happening with people that share their ideology. So I try to just, when I'm having an individual discussion with someone, to focus on just what their words are. So for example, on the debate I did a couple weeks ago on Dylan Burns TV, it was a 4-on-4 panel, and the first topic was pulling down Confederate statues. By the way, you can find this video on my YouTube channel. Not much, Captain Frantic, how's it going? And they were very insistent that we only talk about the removal of Confederate statues, because the obvious problem with saying, yeah, it's okay for mobs to remove Confederate statues is, well, where do they stop? And we see they're not stopping. They're pulling down Thomas Jefferson, George Washington. They're pulling down Abraham Lincoln, Theodore Roosevelt. They're criticizing Mount Rushmore, etc. I'm closer to, BBT, I'm closer to Pittsburgh. I live in Clarion County. So it's about an hour and a half northeast of Pittsburgh is where I live. And I've lived here basically my whole life. So, I'm doing great, Captain Frantic, thanks. So, I thought that was very interesting. And they said, no, we're just talking about Confederate statues. So, okay, I'll have that discussion with you. But we're naive to think that that's what's playing out in the real world. Like, for example, they'll say, 99% of the protests are peaceful. We just want to talk about the peaceful protests. Well, no one has a problem with the peaceful protests. We have a problem with the destruction and the mayhem that's coming with the non-peaceful rioting. Right? That would be the equivalent of me saying, the vast majority of cops have never shot an unarmed black man, so we're not going to talk about the death of George Floyd. We're just talking about good policing. And they would say, well, yeah, but who cares about the good policing if there's a heinous action like the death of George Floyd? And that's right. It's like, yes, that's why it's worth talking about that heinous action. The same is true of these other things. Yes, by the numbers, it's true. I guess the majority of people that are protesting under the banner of Black Lives Matter, probably the majority haven't rioted, they haven't pulled down a statue. But a huge number have. And it's worth talking about how that came to be. And what we can see is the media is spinning Trump's speech, which again I thought was fantastic, as the idea that it's somehow dark and divisive. And they even brought up, why is he bringing up like the Mount Rushmore and people that want to remove it and things like that? Because it's occurring. Now, I know the media has been covering it up for over a month, of course. But that's not reality. Just because the media refuses to see reality, that doesn't mean that, Trump's just out of nowhere saying this stuff about pulling statues down. It's ridiculous. How is it dark and divisive? Think of how far we've fallen. And again, this is one of the things I talk about all the time with the left. Am I talking about you, my friend that might be watching this show on the left? No. Am I talking about my other friends? I have tons of friends on the left. Am I talking about them? No. But I'm talking about the people that are controlling the conversation and running the party and running the establishment left. Constantly we say, look, this sounds like you're defending socialism, for example. Oh, no, we would never defend socialism. That's what we're talking about. Then 3 years later, of course we're defending socialism. And now of course we're defending Marxism. Many of them, as I think will come up in this, I believe the person I'm debating tomorrow is a Marxist. Many of the people I've debated on Twitch on the left are Marxist. Sounds like this is potentially advocating for open borders. Oh, no, we're not advocating for open borders. Two years later, of course it shouldn't be a crime to come here illegally. Of course they should be allowed to stay. Of course they should get free healthcare. Of course they should get free education. Open borders. No, we're not saying open borders. It's just anyone who wants to come here is allowed and it's not criminal and we give them all this free stuff. But not open borders. Geez, it sounds like defund the police. It sounds like your criticism of the police could lead to you being a world where you want to get rid of the police. Oh, we'd never say that. Excuse me, Mayor of Minneapolis, do you want to totally abolish the police? If not, you're not woke enough for us. But we're constantly told, oh, no, that's not what anyone serious says. That's what the people on the ground are saying. Or it's not about demonizing people of a certain color. Until now, we're 1619 Project, white fragility, white people have this sort of original sin, all of this implicit racism. This is constantly what goes on. I have more respect for someone who totally disagrees with me, but it's flat out honest. So, for example, tomorrow if I'm debating a Marxist, hey, I despise Marxism, despise it. But at least they have the nerve to say, yeah, I'm a Marxist. I respect that more than someone who's secretly advocating for this type of stuff, like most of the people in the mainstream media. But they won't come out and tell you, oh, no. And so we saw the New York Times, right? Oh, no one's really criticizing the presidents and stuff. No one's really, well, the New York Times comes out and says, oh, Mount Rushmore's racist, right? You remember the Democrats retweeted someone suggesting possibly the racism of Mount Rushmore, and then they hurried up and deleted the tweet? That's the sort of things we see occurring. It is about hating this country. There are two groups, I've said this before, but there are the Black Lives Matter, Antifa groups. Now again, there's three groups. Let me be fair. The first group is people that for whatever reason, it could be that they're legitimately concerned about issues in the black community and about police interactions with the black community. And even if I would disagree on the racial focus of that, I have no problems with that group. And I'll say it again. I'm someone, if you watch kind of my pinned video on this channel, I talk about one of the inspirations for me starting this channel was I see all these people in working America that I feel don't have a voice. And so I wanted to try to talk to those people and also in the limited way I can be a voice that at least talks about issues that those people are concerned with, because that's how I've lived my whole life. So if I'm going to advocate for that group, right, who am I to say that someone who wants to advocate for the black community is wrong to do so? I think that the focus on race makes things worse more often than not. But I'm not going to say someone's immoral for wanting to advocate for their community. Not at all. So I have no problem with that. I would be a hypocrite if I did. Now, I'm not defending people like the white community. I don't focus on race. I'm defending like the working community. Blacks and whites and atheists and Christians and Muslims and straights and gays and men and women and all of them. Legal immigrants and not, So I don't have a problem. So that's the first group, the people that have legitimate concern, or that they're saying it because they think it puts them in the in crowd, because it's the popular thing now to embrace Black Lives Matter. So there's a lot of people that, I have a lot of friends like this. They couldn't tell you the first thing. Oh, Black Lives Matter. Yeah, tell me some of the things they're advocating for. Well, they're against police brutality. Cool. Anything else? Or do you just want those likes on Facebook? But whatever. Those people are harmless, basically. But then there's two other groups, right? And the first group is the people that are running groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And what these groups want is basically a return, particularly Black Lives Matter. They want a return to Jim Crow era politics. They are interested in revenge. And I talk about this a lot with George Orwell. So I'm not as well read as I should be. So I'm just quoting other people when I talk about this. So forgive me. But Jordan Peterson, for example, talks about George Orwell wrote this book called The Road to Wigan Pier. And the way these books used to come out, they were called serials. So they would come out like in a monthly magazine or newspaper, and they'd put a chapter a week out. And so socialists in London funded George Orwell, who was a self-proclaimed socialist, to go to this coal mining town in Britain and kind of write about the horrible working conditions. And he did. He worked, and the socialists loved it, you know. And so the first half of the book's just George Orwell telling how horrible these poor working class people, how horrible their lives are. But then the second half of the book, George Orwell says, there's something wrong, and I can't place my finger on it. And basically, he ends up saying this. You see, he has a sneaking suspicion that all these socialists that are paying him to talk about the plight of the working poor, it's not that they care about the working poor. It's that they hate the people that have more power than them. Not more power than the working poor, but more power than the socialist. Right? And this was the joke I have about Bernie. Bernie decries billionaires as somehow immoral. I live paycheck to paycheck, Bernie. This is the first year of my life I've ever made more than $15 an hour. You as a millionaire, the difference between me to you is greater than the difference between Bernie and a billionaire. Bernie has 3 houses. A modest lake house, that he says, that's worth $500,000. I will never own a home, one home, that even approaches that. It's not that Bernie thinks that he's great and anyone with 1 penny more than him is immoral. And that's what George Orwell's talking about. They're just using the poor as an excuse to obtain power. That's the sneaking suspicion I have about a lot of these people running Black Lives Matter. They don't care about poor blacks in the inner city. They care about achieving and wielding power. That's what it is. And so, because you look at some of these suggestions, you're like, wait a minute, how does this make sense? Like when they're talking about black safe spaces on universities. Or they want hospitals that have exclusively black people working at them. Wait a minute, isn't that kind of leading towards segregation? Isn't that what we fought against with like Jim Crow? Well, they want that. They do want segregated spaces. And we can see now that they're coming more and more out with that. We want our own country. Black nationalism's on the rise. We want our own autonomous zones. We want our own spaces within the autonomous zones. It's segregation. And it goes to show, it's not, right? It's just like feminism. Feminism used to be about men and women should be equal under the color of law as much as possible. Now, there are biological differences between men and women that make it almost impossible to have a total equality of law. For example, like, there's just going to be biologically, if a woman gets pregnant, we maybe should have laws that are protective of that woman, such as, you know, maternity leave and things like that. I'm not trying to get into a debate about this right now, but you see what I'm saying? The smallest legal things could be different between men and women just because of the biological necessity. But other than that, everything equal. Everyone should be able to get along with that. I totally agree with that. You know, we should have equality of opportunity for men and women. The legal system should basically judge men and women as equal, except very few specific, you know, biologically necessary circumstances. Yeah, I agree with that. But third wave feminism is not about that. Third wave feminism is about dismantling the patriarchy. And go to a feminist class, they'll tell you what it's about. Dismantling the systems of oppression in this country. In other words, they think that they want to tear down this system and they want to be in charge. That's what it's about. Same with Black Lives Matter. They don't want integration, they want segregation. It's just they want to be in charge. But then there's a third group, right? And the third group is the establishment and all these corporations that are allied with Black Lives Matter right now. They don't care at all about Black Lives Matter, at all. What they care about is the tactics of Black Lives Matter and the fact that they could use them as a weapon to seek division. See, the real people that control this country, whether you want to call them the deep state, the establishment, whatever. And let me be real specific who I'm talking about. Establishment people in both parties. Bureaucrats that are unelected, like at the FBI, the CIA, the State Department, and places like that. Wealthy people such as Soros or Bill Gates or Zuckerberg or all of these people, ridiculous, and there's some on the right too, that are donating and trying to control politics. People at the highest levels of academia, at the highest levels of the media, Silicon Valley, of the entertainment industry. They're the people whose voices really matter. And what they want is a return to neo-feudalism. They want a one-world government. They want globalism. That's why they're so against the idea of national borders. And they realize that the best way to achieve that is to make everyone dependent on the government. And the best way to get there is to destroy the working and middle class. That's why they're so giddy with the lockdowns of COVID. That's why they want to cause racial division amongst us. The very people that are responsible for the economic conditions. Look, first off, we all have some measure of personal responsibility. And that's what all of us should focus the most on. But if you're looking at on the averages, and if you want to talk about things like wealth disparity and other things like that, and the fact that the working class has been screwed in this country for 60 years, people of all colors, the very people that we should be looking at saying, yeah, we're sick and tired of these people running the show, let's get them out of power, we're not. Why? Because those people are funding and embracing Black Lives Matter to burn down black neighborhoods and attack middle class people of other colors. Because they know as long as we're at each other's throats, we're not going after them. And let me tell you, as soon as the revolution is over, as soon as Joe Biden wins or something like that, mysteriously there will be crackdowns and you won't see these protests as much. Isn't that odd? I wonder why. Joe Biden, who says you're not black if you don't vote for him. Right, BBT, I agree. At the highest levels, Democrats and Republicans are both the same. They're both corrupt, right? And they encourage these sorts of divisions. They never want to really solve problems. All they want is an excuse to maintain power. That's what it is. And BBT, I'm just intuiting this. I could be wrong. By the way, I'm talking to someone who's on Twitch chatting right now. But BBT, let's say I'm intuiting that maybe you're more supportive of Black Lives Matter than me. That's great. I'm glad you're here. I'm not going to shame you for that. But do you see my point of, as long as we're focused on that and just the racial aspect of it, it keeps us from focusing on the real people that are pulling the strings. And nothing will get solved. I mean, do you think it's a coincidence that Chase Bank and, for example, Nike that uses child labor in China, you think it's a coincidence that they're out there shouting Black Lives Matter as loud as they can? Or Chase Bank that's got in trouble for predatory lending, including to the inner city black community. You think it's a coincidence that they're saying Black Lives Matter so loud? All of these other politicians and stuff. Again, I'm biased, I'm conservative, I admit it. But the same people for all these cities were ran by Democrats. Year after year. Democrats who, at least from what they talk, they say they're very concerned about racial problems in this country. Every year they say this. Yet how's it getting worse every year? And then these Democrats that are in power say, well, one of the problems is systemic racism. Well, what's that phrase mean? Systemic racism. The systems of control are racist, but you're at the helm of them. So if the systems are racist, and Democrats, you're saying the system's racist, and you control the system, why is the system still racist? Maybe it's because, and just hear me out here, maybe it's because they want those problems to continue in the black community. Because then those are votes they could count on by saying, we're going to solve these problems. Now, if they actually solve the problems, then they can't run on solving the problems anymore. So those are the groups I see. So I'll probably go to midnight tonight. So one of the things I want to move on to is this. If you've watched my show for a while, you've realized that I have a great frustration with the Republican Party. So let me real quick say what I want. I said after Kavanaugh and the Covington situation that I could, in good faith, never vote for a Democrat again until there was a huge change in the leadership of the party. And the reason was that they were embracing identity politics so much that it was leading to unthinkable things, like claiming that a man was a gang rapist and going after whether or not he should be able to coach his daughter's basketball team based on nothing. Claiming that the truth doesn't matter, only subjective truth matters, and that you're guilty until proven innocent. That would destroy the legal foundation and the cultural foundation of this country. Or in the Covington situation, defending adult black racist and a Native American man that was defending them as they yell racial and homophobic slurs at children because they're perceived as Trump supporters. That's beyond the pale. Now, so I can't vote Democrat, never would. However, does that mean everyone who identifies as Democrat is a terrible person? No. Does that even mean every Democratic politician's terrible? Tell you one, I like Vernon Jones from South Carolina, maybe? He seems on point. So no, I'm not saying that. Now, with the Republicans, am I saying that every Republican's terrible? No. And by the way, this is more true as you get to the local level. Like, for example, there was a Democrat that ran in my local town. Anywhere else in the country, well, not anywhere, but many places in the country, he would have been considered a Republican. Pro-Second Amendment, pro-life. You know, he just believed that in more social programs. Quite a reasonable person, I thought. I never got a chance to talk to him face-to-face, but I heard a lot of his platform and said, you know, there were some things I didn't like, but nothing extreme, and I thought he backed up all of his positions with credible arguments. You know, I didn't think he was unreasonable. So I'm not saying all Democrats are horrible evil. And I have many Democrat friends, some of my best friends. Now, Republicans. You might say, oh, so you always defend Republicans. No, not at all. If you watch this channel a lot, you'll see that. I think that at the establishment level, the Republicans wanted Trump to lose. They wanted Hillary Clinton. And we see that with your Rubios, your Romneys, even with McConnell and Lindsey Graham, I think. They're better at hiding it, but it's all lip service. But the Republicans, their chief attribute, so I think that the people running the Democratic show, the bulk of them at the high levels of power, I think they probably hate this country. They want to usher in this globalism. They're part of this deep state. There's many at the top of the Republican Party like that. But the defining characteristic of the Republican Party isn't corrupt. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's corruption at the top levels. But it's something worse than corruption, probably. Because corruption you could deal with. You could find ways to get your point across to a corrupt person. But you know what you can't deal with? A coward. And to me, that is the defining characteristic of the Republican Party. All they care about is getting reelected. Whatever they have to say, they're talking to their focus group every day. What do I say today? Today masks are bad? Okay, I'll say masks are bad. Okay, focus group, now this week, what should I say? Masks are good again? Okay, I'll go out there and say masks are good. Yeah, I'll march with Black Lives Matter, no problem. Oh, next week, it turns out my constituents were against that? Yeah, I don't like Black Lives Matter, though. Do they hate it or seek to control? Doesn't make sense. Well, it depends. Like, I assume you're talking about the Republicans. Yes, at the establishment level, the establishment Republicans at the big level, like the people that are running, like Rubio, Romney, that character, they're no different than Jeb Bush. They're no different than Hillary Clinton, Chuck Schumer, etc. Then when you start to go down that level a little, I think that in the Democratic Party, a lot of them, the Democrats stick together almost no matter what. So they're on board with what's going on with the people running the Democratic Party, and they'll just go along with whatever they say. And I think a lot of them really believe in this sort of progressive socialist agenda, which amounts to globalism. I think most of them believe that. The Republican Party, I don't think they do believe that. And I think sometimes they question what the establishment Republicans are doing. It's just that they're cowards. They're afraid to speak up. All they care about is, what can I do to get reelected? If you said, hey, here's ultimate power, would they take it? I'm sure. But they're not going to take a risk to do that. For example, let's take my county, or my district, right? Now, the person that's the Republican in my district, Glenn Thompson, right? Let's say he had aspirations to get more power. So maybe he wants to run for Senate, or he wants to run for president. What would be, right now, the ticket to standing apart? Because what you need to do is, if you're in a pack of hundreds of people, and you want to achieve more power, you have to separate yourself and stand apart in some way. Right? Now, that's a risk, though. Because standing apart could mean, you know, the nail that's standing up is the first to get pounded. So you could lose the slight power you have now. But if you wanted to stand out, instantly, How would you do it? You would just be like, yeah, Black Lives Matter is garbage. This country's not systemically racist. You'd be a hero. And you're in a district like mine, Republicans win 80% to 20%. So it's not like you're going to lose to the Democrats saying that. You don't have to worry about but our Republican representative won't say that. Why? Because all that matters to him is getting reelected. He don't want to say anything risky that could have any mobs criticizing him or that he would have to defend himself in an articulate way. Maybe he's not capable. Maybe he's just a coward. I don't know. Either way, it's not leadership. So that's what I feel about the Republican Party. So why capitulate? Do you mean why vote for them? Well, that's a problem, and I've talked about that in this channel. If the only reason to vote Republican is that the Democrats are even worse, that's not a good reason. So I criticize that all the time. What I'm doing, instead of capitulating, is running for Congress. And I recommend, even my friends on the left here, every one of you should run for office. Every one, if you're capable. And I assure you, you're as competent as 95% of the people that obtained political office in this country. The only thing you're lacking that they have is the money and connections to get elected. But make no mistake about it. A talent to get elected is different than a talent to lead and govern. So what we need is people that could lead and govern. We don't have that. We have a bunch of people that have money and connections and are good at getting elected. They're good at listening to focus groups. So I'm not capitulating. I hope not. All right, so I want to talk to the cowards in the Republican Party that are running for office. First off, this is what I talked to my friend Carlos on my radio show, and this is what I say. At this point, I don't care. It's so bad with leadership in this country, particularly in the Republican Party. I think I've criticized Trump much on this channel, so before people say that I'm just a sycophant for Trump, go back to March when I'm losing subscribers hand over fist because I'm freaking out and flipping out about Trump's response to COVID. And if you're on the left or if you knew, you might be like, oh, you were mad because Trump, didn't lock down? No, I was mad because Trump was endorsing lockdowns. So, trust me, I've criticized Trump aplenty. But at least he's out there, and his Rushmore speech was a great one, trying to defend this country. Push back from the argument how evil and horrible and systemically racist this country is. Defend police officers and things like that. That's what we need. And so at least he's trying it. But he can't do it alone. The reason Trump, it seems divisive, is because the Republicans have totally ceded the narrative to the establishment left. Oh, it's a racist kind of 1619 project and white fragility and all this stuff. Oh, yes, they've lost the culture wars. And as I say all the time, Andrew Breitbart was right. Politics is downstream of culture. While the Republicans were focused on winning election after election, the establishment, and particularly the face of it, the establishment Democratic Party, was interested in controlling academia, was interested in controlling Hollywood and the entertainment industry, was interested in controlling Silicon Valley and the mainstream media. And now, as a result, I talked about this on Sarah Corrier's channel the other night, right? Look, Britain's the best example. In Britain, they just had an election, and Jeremy Corbyn, who, this is obviously not a apples to apples comparison, but for the sake of this discussion, was basically the Bernie Sanders of the UK, of the Labour Party. Very left-wing progressive person. He got trounced. So the UK said, we've had it with this progressivism. We've had it with this far left stuff. Done. Yet if you look at the UK today, it's more left-wing than ever. Despite the right wing winning the election. Why? Because the left won the culture wars. They control academia. They control the culture. And politics is secondary to that. So even if you would get all Republicans, if the entire narrative is dominated by the left and all of these other cultural institutions, it wouldn't matter. The Republicans would be too cowardly to do anything. So that's what occurred. So we have to start getting back in that discussion, which is why Trump was right when he articulates that one of the problems is that we've ceded academia to the left. All of the numbers back this up. You can go check out Jonathan Haidt, who's a leftist himself, at Heterodox Academy, where they've been taking actual data. And it's not just that academia is becoming more people that are left-wing, almost 9-1 at this point, people in the administration and in teaching roles that identify as left-wing. 9-1. But it's always been skewed to the left. Now they're not just left, they're becoming more radical left as well. So we see, now we're bearing the fruits of this. And again, I talked about this when I was in debate in 2003 and 2004. And I told people, granted, I didn't have a channel back then, but I was telling everyone I knew, this stuff's coming to the mainstream world. It's coming. What we see right now in the debate community will eventually be mainstream on campuses, and then it will be mainstream in our everyday lives. And I'm talking about walking into rooms and saying, you're a white person, you don't have the right to live, or you should forfeit this round because you're a white person, or because you're a man, etc. Extreme identity politics, extreme Marxism. Here we are. That's what happens. So anyways, I'm rambling here. Let's get to the good stuff. What do we say to the Republican Party? So the Republican Party is afraid to say that they disagree with Black Lives Matter because they're buying the argument that, well, if you disagree with Black Lives Matter, then you must not care about Black lives. That's ridiculous. That's stupid. I disagree with Black Lives Matter because I feel that they're a Marxist movement. I feel that their focus on race isn't telling the whole story, and it's dividing this country, and it's running cover for the establishment that screwed over all working class people, including inner city blacks. And I feel that the policy prescriptions they're offering, such as defunding or abolishing the police, or defunding or abolishing prisons, and many of these other policies that they're offering would be a disaster for all communities, including the inner city black community. So yes, I think the idea that a black person's life matters is absolutely true. And to even ask the question of, do you think a black life matters? Of course it does. It's insulting that you would ask me that, I feel. But that doesn't mean I believe in the movement that's adopted that name. Any more than I believe that Antifa, I dislike them because I'm a fascist. I dislike Antifa in part because they are fascist. So just because they have a clever name, again, if the KKK changes their names to the We Like Puppies and Babies Party, does that mean if you're against the agenda of the KKK, you're against puppies and babies? No, it's just a name. You might disagree with me. You might say, actually, I think Black Lives Matter, their agenda would be good for the black community. Fair enough, we disagree. We could discuss those disagreements. But I'm not going to listen to you tell me I'm immoral or it's somehow I'm not allowed to say that I'm against the agenda of Black Lives Matter. That's ridiculous. And the only people that do that try to censor any criticism of a particular ideology, are people that don't have anything better to say. And they know they can only win through censorship. However, the Republicans are cowards. So they fall for this crap. They're afraid of being called racist. So, to the Republicans out there. Oh, and this is what I was going to say. At this point, I would take a Republican that even isn't a good person, that's just willing for personal benefit to say the right thing. That would be better. You would like to have people that actually care about their constituents, but we have so few of those people on either side of the aisle. Heck, I'm willing to accept someone who's at least doing the right thing for personal gain. We don't even have that. So, here we go. All right? So how do you criticize Black Lives Matter if you're a cowardly Republican that's afraid to get into a conversation about race? I have it. Here is where Republicans strategically, because they're cowards, what they should be doing, the right thing would be defending this country and fighting back the narrative of systemic racism, but they won't. They're cowards. So here's what you could at least do. All right? You ready for this? One of the tenets of Black Lives Matter that I was shocked to see, and I've been testing this, and people say to me, why are you going on all these debate panels? Why are you talking to so many people on the left? Because it's important to understand people that disagree with you. And I was shocked to see that this was a point that was being defended. Because a lot of times you'll say like, well, Black Lives Matter, therefore defunding the police. And what they'll say is, well, but that just means social workers and blah, 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 blah. Right? So they're hedging back against, we don't want to abolish the police. But there's one issue that's in their platform that sticks out like a sore thumb. And every single person I've brought it up to on the left, they're not downplaying it. They are against the nuclear family. It's right in their statement. Go to their website. They think it's a bad idea to have a mother, father, or two parents and a kid. They think that's a bad idea. Now, everybody knows that it's brutally difficult to raise a child in a single parent environment. In fact, most studies show that the three things you need to do to be considered successful in life, and by the measures of success are things like, owning a home, not going to jail, not becoming addicted to substances, etc. Graduate high school, have full-time employment, have a two-parent household. Why would Black Lives Matter be against the very thing that would help Black lives more than anything? Again, I talk about this all the time. I think it was 1962. Democrat Patrick Moynihan commissions a report that shows that 25% of Black children are born out of wedlock. He says this is a national disgrace. As a result of this policy, we instituted many of the policies we saw on the war on poverty. 60 years after the war on poverty, what's the number? 75% of Black children are born out of wedlock. And that number is over 50% for white children. And it's also high in Hispanic communities, lower in the Asian communities. So it's not just a racial thing, it's a disaster in any community, regardless of your color, to have single parent families. Particularly fatherlessness, which leads to a lack of a male figure that could stop a lot of the sort of gang culture that we see. Because the gang culture substitutes where you don't have a father figure there. Now, I'm no sociologist, so I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about this, but you can see how that makes sense. Why would they be against the nuclear family? Why would you be against that? And so I bring this up to people, and I expected the answer to be, no, that's not what they're really saying. They're just saying that they don't want just a mom and a dad. It could be two moms, two dads. I thought that's what they were going to say. In which I think that right now, the best situation is to have a masculine figure and a feminine figure, so a mom and a dad. But I defend gay rights, and I defend, I think with as many people as we have in the foster system, that if two people of the same gender want to adopt, probably if you want to adopt or bring a child in the world and you're someone who's in a non-traditional relationship, that means that you're less likely to have an accidental pregnancy, which means you're more likely to actually be parents that are, want to be parents and are doing a good job. Totally support, two moms, two dads having a kid. Totally support it. So please, hey, maybe you disagree with that, but I'm all on board for it. So I thought that's what they were going to say, right? And I'd be like, oh, okay. That's not what I've been told. They're against the nuclear family, and instead they're going with the Hillary Clinton, it takes a village. We think the community should raise kids, not parents. Why? Because the nuclear family's been used to abuse trans people and LGBT people and non-binary people. Wait, what? Thanks, Ross. I really appreciate it. I get it, Freebird. A lot of people... Look, it is who I am. And I hope that everyone can take this. I'm not just... Let me put it this way. If you're a free-thinking person, you will never find a person in the world that totally agrees with all of your positions. And then that means, by default, you'll never find a political party that agrees with all of your positions. So I welcome people disagreeing with me in this, and I know a lot of Republicans. When I ran for office, my support of gay marriage cost me a lot of Republican votes. I don't care. I hope there's only one thing I have in this world, and that's my authenticity. So I'm just going to tell it like I see it, and oftentimes you'll all disagree with me, but I hope you could respect. That's totally cool. I don't mind disagreement at all, so I get it. But that's my feelings. Now, is it proven at this point that two dads on average or two moms on average would be, on average I'm saying, because individually you could always have two exceptional dads or an exceptional mom and dad, etc. But has it been proven conclusively that two dads are just as good as a mom and dad? I haven't seen that. But I still think that that's preferable to kids in the foster system. So without a doubt, I support it. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, right, Freebird. Of course we could disagree, no problem. But why the attack on the nuclear family? To me, that is the fundamental issue of where we're going wrong in this country. Attacking the fact that family structure has been falling apart. Larry Elder, who happens to be black, but he's a conservative, talks often about how he grew up in an inner city community, and he remembers back in the 60s, government agents knocking on doors telling mothers, hey, you know, if there wasn't a dad in the house, that you would get government money. So is it any surprise that we've tripled the amount of black children born out of wedlock? And now Black Lives Matter, a group that's seeking to speak for them, is further encouraging the destruction of the nuclear family. Because trans and LGBT and it takes a village. Look, and this is something that we as conservatives, at least many, have been talking about for a long time. Go watch the video that's pinned on my channel, right? For some reason it doesn't show up all the time, but in that video I talk about what makes America the greatest country in the history of the world. It was the first country that codified and said we're all together. We encourage people of different backgrounds and stuff, but what brings us together is the idea of freedom, individual liberty, and individual responsibility. And those are two sides of the same coin. When you have freedom and liberty, you also have responsibility. But it's not just an individual. Everyone needs a support network, and the best network you have is your friends, your family, particularly your family. Why would we want to destroy that? Because it's about destroying the individual. It's about making you part of the collective. It's Marxism. You see all these posts on Facebook of people encouraging, we need to stop associating with family members that don't agree with us politically. See, what I'm saying on my channel is the exact opposite. Please don't leave your political... if you're someone in your family, a close person, you know, a brother, a sister, a mom, a dad, an uncle, whatever, that you completely disagree with politically, please maintain that relationship if you can. Just don't talk about politics if that's the case, you know? I have plenty of friends that are on the left. I just don't really talk about politics. But I value their friendship. Particularly when it comes to family. I'm sure my sister's still young, so I don't talk about her much on here, but she's still in high school. But inevitably, when she graduates, I'd love to do a show with her, and she's going to disagree with 95% of what I say politically. I love my sister. That's okay, right? It's okay. Why is so many people on the other side saying, no. Become disillusioned with your family if they disagree. You have to be progressive. You have to support Black Lives Matter. What's that about? What's it about destroying the nuclear family? Every single Republican, no matter how cowardly they are, should be able to articulate a defense of the nuclear family. And Black Lives Matter is not backing off from it. So that's where you could start. And by the way, if my new computer was in and I could play a video and still live stream without it lagging, I would play this. But here's someone I want you to look up. Look up Marcellus Wiley. Okay? I think I'm spelling his name right here. I'll put it in the chat. Now, Marcellus Wiley, he does one of these shows. It used to be like First Take was the one I remember. But these kind of sports debate shows, they're all over ESPN and Fox Sports and stuff. Now, I'm disillusioned with sports at this point, and I'm not going to watch any of them, I think, which kills me because I'm such a Pittsburgh sports fan. But, hey, they're too woke for me now, so whatever. But anyways, I used to watch these sports debate shows. I thought they were interesting sometimes. And Marcellus Wiley's one of them. He was, I believe, a defensive end in the NFL. I can't remember what team. But an athlete himself who's very... Even if I disagree with him, everything I've seen from him, he knows more about sports than me. So seems good at his job. Happens to be a black guy. If you look up his speech on Black Lives Matter, he's criticizing the NBA for putting Black Lives Matter on the side of the court. And he's like, look, it's really problematic when we allow these industries to be, these entertainment sports to be so political, because what if the other side wants to be political? Are they allowed to be political? Oftentimes, no. It's only politics of a certain side. So, for example, if we're allowed to put Black Lives Matter on NBA courts, can we also support the Hong Kong protest? Oh, no, because the NBA is bought and paid for by China. So you can't do that. Right, LeBron? Right, Steve Kerr? Right, Greg Popovich? You'll bash America every day as long as you can, but when it comes to China, oh, no, we have nothing to say about that. They pay our checks. And us as ridiculous million and billionaires, we can't afford to lose any pennies. So, nope. Cowards, every one of them. But Marcellus Wiley then goes on and says, you want to know what? And he's like, and furthermore, you want to get to the truth of it? Here it is. I don't support Black Lives Matter. Why? Because the only reason I succeeded in my life was because I had a mom and a dad. And I watched my friends growing up that didn't have that didn't have father figures, that they wish so hard that they did, and their life was so much harder because they didn't have that. And he goes on and he says, I've been defending the black community and trying to help with the problems in it long before Black Lives Matter came along. So why would I endorse a movement that's endorsing the very thing that could help black lives more than anything? The nuclear family. And he's right. And that's, I'm guessing Marcellus Wiley, just from comments I've heard him make in the past, I don't think he's a Trump supporter, conservative. I would say probably he's a Democrat. Why is he doing better than the Republican leaders of articulating this? So tell your leaders, tell your friends that are afraid to criticize Black Lives Matter, because we have a society of fear now. You're afraid of losing your job or getting canceled, right? I don't care. I'm going to speak up. I don't care. But tell your friends, if you really have a problem and you're afraid to speak up, one of the things you could safely talk about why Black Lives Matter is a bad organization is they are open about the fact they want to destroy the nuclear family. Do you value your parents? Do you value your children? Do you think that you want to have the say in how your children's lives go? Or would you rather it be the community? Because Black Lives Matter, the most powerful political organization in the country right now, endorsed universally by every one of our institutions of power, by almost every corporation, even Republicans marching with them, they say destroy the nuclear family. And everyone's afraid to call them out. So that's where we could start calling them out. It would be a disaster. Absolute disaster. Okay. Sorry I'm not getting to a lot of your comments. I will try to get to more here. So now one of the things I like to do is, let's do some of the Twitter stuff I bookmarked today. I need to get, I got a couple of friends that are going to do music for me. Maybe we can have, bookmark tweet section. Can I do a little... Bookmark tweets. Bookmark tweets. All right, here we go. I don't have these in any particular order. It's just the order I saw them. Number one, let's go back. Way back. Let's get in our machine. Let me make sure, by the way, you can hear me. One time I screwed this up. Yeah, you can still hear me. Bookmark tweets. Get in your time machine and head back to February 29th. The experts. You remember the experts? Fauci and the Surgeon General and Dr. Birx and thousands of other experts. And they know what's best for us. Let's see what the U.S. Surgeon General was tweeting on February 29th. Seriously, people, stop buying masks. They're not effective in preventing general public from catching coronavirus, but if healthcare providers can't get them to care for sick patients, it puts them and their communities at risk. Wow. Huh. Now, Dr. Fauci said something very similar, and then later had to admit, well, we were afraid that we were going to run out of masks for healthcare professionals, so we had to tell people that. Now, when I brought this up to people on the left, they said, well, that's not a lie. That's just misleading for an altruistic reason. No, it's not. Again, I'll show you. This isn't that hard. Let me show you something I have here. You ready for this? This is amazing. You ready? Here's a piece of cloth. You can make a mask out of it. Isn't that crazy? Isn't that amazing? Now, if we're to believe them, cloth masks are effective. That's what they're saying now, right? So if the argument is, well, so there's only two possibilities. Either they're inept, and they didn't think masks worked then, but they actually do work. So if that's the case, why should we trust them now, if they were so wrong back at the end of February? Or they thought masks worked back then, and they still think masks work, but they were worried that nurses were going to run out of masks, so they lied and told us not to get them. But here's the problem. If they thought that the masks worked, they could have said, there's no difference between the mask you could buy and how to make one at home. Hey, we have a national platform. Let's show you how in 2 minutes you could make your own cloth mask. Or you could use a bandana. Or you could cut a piece of your shirt off and make a mask with that. Let's show you how to do that in 2 minutes. Wouldn't that have been a better way of saying than, oh, no, don't go buy masks? Wouldn't that have been much better? Again, let's take them at face value, okay? Let's say that they're right, that cloth masks work now, because I've seen a lot of evidence that cloth masks don't work. That the only ones that are effective are those like NH95 masks. But that's not what they're saying now, because they know, right? They're saying cloth masks work. So let's take them at face value. Now they think cloth masks work. And they thought they worked back in February. They were just afraid that people would run out and buy all these masks and then nurses wouldn't have them. Why wouldn't they have said you could make your own mask? It's just as effective. Even if it wasn't just as effective, at least that's a lie that would have saved lives. Instead, they chose to say, oh, you're stupid if you're running out there to get masks. They don't help. That's the people who we have to trust our lives to that are admitting to us, yeah, we knew that masks would help you, but we lied. But trust us now. Now you have to trust everything we say. It's nonsense. And the fact that so many people are willing to say, well, hey, they had to lie. It was for the greater good. That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. It would have cost them nothing to say, make your own mask at home. It's just as good as the one you buy. Would have cost them nothing. Which leads me to the third option, which is they're just full of it. They either don't know if masks works, or they know that they don't, and they just don't care. Because it's about control. By the way, you think it's any coincidence that we're all being told we need to wear masks at the same times when rioters are out there all wearing masks? I don't. Right, Joe. They'll drop the whole coronavirus thing after Biden wins if he wins. It'll be gone. Again, the numbers just don't lie, and maybe tomorrow I'll go through the numbers on my show. I mean, they don't lie. They're now talking about the CDC taking COVID off the pandemic list because the death rate's not high enough anymore. But basically, if you look at the official numbers, we've doubled the amount of testing. We have not doubled the amount of infected. We've gone up by like 1.5 times. And the death rate's fallen by a third. We had months where we had basically 60,000 people dying. Last month we had 20,000. They keep saying, yes, but the hospitals are being overflowed. Well, we're still 10,000 short of where we were at the peak for hospitals being filled. They lied to us. I told you before COVID that the establishment was going to purposely try to destroy the economy. That's exactly what we're seeing. And if you have any questions that they're lying to you, remember, they're trying to claim that we had to social distance. You couldn't go to a ball game, right? Right? You couldn't go to a ball game. All those people outdoors together at a baseball game. Oh, that'd be a disaster. But it's okay for 100,000 people to go march for black trans lives. That didn't spread it. That's what the experts are trying to tell you. I did a video the other day where I said a choice word to those experts. So that's all I'll say there. Moving on. So I'm trying to do these in an order. So you know how the experts said, they all signed on and said, yes, millions of people will die from COVID. Millions will die if we don't stay locked down. But an even bigger virus is white supremacy. So go ahead and get out there and protest. So apparently they're okay with potentially millions of people dying as long as it was to protest white supremacy. That's how ludicrous this is, right? That's what they said, okay? Now the same experts are saying, hey, there's no proof. There's no proof that any of these protests led to the increase in numbers. So I found this interesting. LA Mayor Garcetti admits connection between coronavirus outbreak and the protest. Isn't that unusual? Hey, thanks, BBT. Oh, wait. No one ever said what? Or you're claiming no one ever said? Okay. So I think what BBTX is saying, that I'm mischaracterizing, that no one ever said that the virus, protesting racism was more important than fighting the virus. So, oh, come on, CNN. Yes, I am using an ad blocker. Ugh. Stupid. Over 1,000 health professionals signed a letter saying don't shut down protests using coronavirus. A group of health and medical colleagues has penned an open letter to express their concern that the protests around the United States could be shut down under the guise of coronavirus health concerns. The letter, which went on to draw more than 1,200 signatures, focuses on techniques to reduce harm. We created the letter in response to emerging narratives that seem malign demonstrations as risky for the public health concerns of COVID. Instead, we wanted to present a narrative that prioritizes opposition to racism as vital to the public health, including the academic response. We believe that the way forward is not to suppress protests in the name of public health, but to respond to protesters' demands in the name of public health, thereby addressing multiple public health crises. The letter goes on. Staying at home and social distancing and public masking are effective at minimizing the spread of COVID. To the extent possible, we support the application of these public health best practices during demonstrations that call attention to the pervasive lethal force of white supremacy. However, as public health advocates, we do not condemn these gatherings as risky for COVID transmission. We support them as vital to the national public health and to the threatened health specifically of black people in the United States. We can show that support by facilitating safest protesting practices without distracting from demonstrators' ability to gather and demand change. This should not be confused with permissive stance on all gatherings, particularly protests against stay-at-home orders. Oh, thank goodness we get out of there on Don Lemon's face. So, are you still here, BBT? Right, you probably left. But I do think that's amazing. I understand why BBT would say, and by the way, this was on Twitch, dude, no one ever said that. Of course, because it sounds so ridiculous. There's no way that thousands of health professionals said that they are against protest, except because it would spread COVID, except Black Lives Matter protest. No way that was ever said. And he probably did leave before I presented the evidence. Yes, they did say that. They absolutely did. And now those same experts are trying to say, well, there's no evidence. There's no evidence that the protest led to the virus spreading. Yeah, okay. Right, Abaddon. It's okay to protest, not to go to church, not to go to work to feed yourself. By the way, let's talk about this for a minute, because it's something I brought up that I've yet to hear a sufficient answer to, right? If we need to what exactly is the Black Lives Matter protest about? The 15 unarmed blacks that were shot by police last year? Or is it just that, I've read the studies, black people are 10% more likely to get pulled over and questioned for things like speeding tickets? Okay, that's what the CNN study said. That's what these protests are over? Did you know that the lockdown, according to the official government numbers, 40% of employed adult black males have lost their job as a result of the lockdown? 40%. So let's just take this. Let's say you're a black gentleman who lives in Philadelphia, right? And you bust your butt. You got a family, you got 2 kids. You're out there working 50, 60 hours a day. You're doing what you can. You're great at your job. You're bringing home money, trying to save up money to put your kids through school, doing the right thing. You're pretty happy with your life. And then COVID comes and you're told you can't go to work anymore because, you'll spread the virus. And you say, hey, you know what? If I have to stay shut down for a couple weeks or a month, that's fine. I'll do it for the good of the country. Okay? Then a month goes by, then 2 months goes by, then 3 months goes by. And now all of a sudden that job that you have, they might never open up again. Right? Now you're really worried. Maybe you're so worried. And then you see, for example, that your governor, Tom Wolf, who told you you're a coward if you want to go back to work. That's what he said. He said you're a coward, that they would take CARES Act funding, the funding designed to help people through this, that goes to each county from the federal government. They would take that funding away from your county if people went out and refused to abide by his order saying that you have to be locked down. And that he would come for your liquor license if you had one, or your small business operating license, etc. So that's what your governor said to you, the black guy who's just trying to work and feed his family. Now you're told, hey, it's okay for you to go out and protest if you're upset about a cop killing a black guy in Minneapolis, but it's not okay for you to go to work, and it's not okay for you to get upset and want to protest about the ability that you can't go to work. Now, what do you think's more important to that black gentleman? I mean, I guess we don't know. It's a hypothetical situation. But I'd say there's a reasonable chance that that person could say, hey, maybe I even support Black Lives Matter. But it's also important to me to have a job. And the idea that it's just flippantly being written off by Democrats and health experts is, and I've heard this every time I debate this with someone, they say, oh, you're just upset you wanted to go get your hair cut. It must be nice to be so privileged that you don't have to worry if you don't have to work for 3 months. I do. So do many, many black people. And people of all colors. I work for a living. So this idea that these experts, oh, we think it's okay, and I'm sorry that BBT left, and he's probably, poor BBT, he's probably thinking, I disagreed with a lot of what Rob said, but he was reasonable. But then he was like, I've had my fill. He said something that's blatantly untrue. No way that health experts would say, we don't support you going out unless it's to protest. And that fighting white supremacy is more of a public health concern. No way they said, dude, no one said that. Peace out. That's what he said. I hope you're still here, BBT, because they said it. And it's a shame that your media didn't tell you that they said it. Okay, what do I have next? Let's see what a Toronto Black Lives Matter founder has to say. Remember, it's not about racism. It's not about, skin color. White people are genetic defects, says BLM leader who mulled how whites could be wiped out. I'm not going to click on the article, but it does say that. In a deleted tweet, she said that she wanted to have the strength not to kill white people. She says that it's just true because of melanin and things like that they're genetic defects. But no one's saying that. No one's saying that. Again, this is a movement that at the funeral of George Floyd had the Nation of Islam, some of the biggest anti-Semites in the country, running security. Black nationalists running security. The same Nation of Islam whose leader, Louis Farrakhan's taking pictures with many people in the Congressional Black Caucus, with Barack Obama. David Duke at one time said he'd vote for Trump, and it was a national story for months. Do you denounce David Duke? Do you denounce David Duke? But when a black nationalist who hates Jews and is an anti-Semite is taking pictures with Barack Obama, nary a question. Well, whatever. When black nationalists are running security for George Floyd's protest, no one cares. And so now we have Black Lives Matter leaders saying white people are genetically inferior. No one bats an eye. No problem. I know. It's the no true Scotsman's fallacy. Every time you talk about communism or socialism or Black Lives Matter, oh, no, they're not the real Black Lives Matter. Pigs in a blanket flying like bacon. Remember Black Lives Matter chant? Oh, no, that's not the real Black Lives Matter. Or the BLM guy that shot, 4 police officers in Dallas there in 2015 or something? Oh, no, that's not the real Black Lives Matter. Or the people in the autonomous zone and all their crazy demands. Oh, no, that's not the real Black Lives Matter. Right? They always say, oh, it's just this amorphous. Black Lives Matter is just whatever we want to tell you today that it means. There's no leadership. So, yeah, I thought that was funny. Good on them. So there you go. How about this? I had people tell me over and over and over, if we would have just listened to Colin Kaepernick, if we would have just listened to his peaceful protest, then it would have stopped all of the need for this current protest. No, it wouldn't have. The Colin Kaepernick thing was a lie from the get-go, right? Because the argument was people were saying, you heard this all over ESPN and stuff, Colin Kaepernick wasn't saying that this is a bad country or anything about this country. He was making a statement about police. Well, first off, the statement about police, he has no idea. There's no nuance in his discussion whatsoever. He just looks at data and says, blacks are 2.5 times more likely to be shot by police than whites, therefore racism. That's not what that proves. Any more than me saying, oh, blacks are 13% of the population but commit 50% of the homicide, that proves that blacks are inferior. No, that's not what that proves. It proves that we need to look in and find reasons for this data. But the Black Lives Matter people don't do that. They just say, nope. If there's a discrepancy between white and black people being shot by the police, proves racism. So Kaepernick was, even in the discussion that they were claiming, Kaepernick was woefully uninformed. And intentionally so, I would say. Misleading. But that's not what he said. Kaepernick's first statement was, something along the lines of, I refuse to stand for the flag of a white racist nation that blah, 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 blah. So it was about disrespecting the flag. It was about disrespecting the country. But the PR people at the NFL and elsewhere and at ESPN, they had to get in there and say, no, we can't say that. Let's act like you really love this country, but you're upset about the police. You know, the guy that's wearing the police's pig socks. He's the one who wants to have a civil discussion with you. So that's the line that people bought for years now. But now that it's politically, you got all this backing, right? Not just politically. It's culturally the dominant force to say this country's horrible, this country's racist. Now Colin Kaepernick could come right back out and show you who he really is. So let's see what Kaepernick has to say about the 4th of July. Colin Kaepernick condemns July 4th as celebration of white supremacy. Black people have been dehumanized, brutalized, criminalized, and terrorized by America for centuries and are expected to join your commemoration of independence while you enslaved our ancestors? We reject your celebration of white supremacy and look forward to liberation for all. Well, there you have it. America's independence and celebrating America's independence and foundation as a country is white supremacy. He will not join in you celebrating this country. Do you see what they want now? Is it starting to become obvious? This isn't just about solving police brutality. It's about dismantling the United States. That's why they're tearing down the statues. That's why they want to rewrite history and end movies like Gone with the Wind and all. They're trying to eliminate history. This isn't unprecedented. This is exactly what Pol Pot did in Cambodia. He called it Year Zero. Erase all history from the time that I took power. That's what they're doing. But Trump calling this out is dark and divisive. Colin Kaepernick's a hero. Yeah, I'll never watch another NFL game. Done. It pains me to say it. Huge Steeler fan, but whatever. So yeah, just so you know, the next time someone tries to tell you, oh, Kaepernick's a very reasonable person. Again, they want to speak out of both sides of their mouth. Oh, these are just, we're too cowardly to have this discussion about policing in this country. No, we're not. I'll have that conversation any day, all day. The reality is that's not what the conversation is. The conversation is wanting to destroy and say the United States is terrible. And say it's racist and destroy it. That's what it's about. And they say, no, that's not what it's about. Well, here we go. And I said this early in this segment. Just be honest. Just come out and be honest. I would respect someone more that says, I hate this country. I want to destroy it. At least they're being honest, opposed to the people that really think that, but they hide in the shadows like cowards until every corporation says, it's okay, now you can go out there. Go ahead, Starbucks endorses you. Go ahead and talk about how much you hate the United States. It's cool now. You'll get high fives on Facebook. Good job. Yay. Cowards, the lot of them. No respect for these people that hid their true feelings. Come out and say it. All right, what else we got? A couple more. So we always hear about racism and people that are racist and the Republican Party's racist and conservatives are racist against blacks. Some of the most vitriolic racism I see is from left-leaning people directing it at black people that don't agree with them. And this will be the debate I'm talking about tomorrow with intersectionality, or what I call cultural Marxism. And the idea is that basically you break people into these groups based on skin color, gender, sexual preference, etc. And one of the groups is oppressors and the other group is the oppressed. But the problem is that you only get those victimhood points that's like the most powerful currency in the world right now. If you could claim to be a victim, man, you are in. That's it. The most victimized person is the coolest person. You get all the cool points. All the institutions will love you, right? But you only get those victimhood points if you agree with the narrative. The only kind of diversity they don't want is diversity of opinion. All other diversity they love. What's up, Jave Flup or J Flup? This place is my channel, Normal America Show, conservative politics, basically. Thanks for being here. Yeah, I got you with TJ Watt. And yeah, it's terrible. Anyways, so let's give an example of that. Of the vitriol that if you're someone who is in one of these, because, I mean, Joe Biden said it. If you're black and you're considering not voting for him, you're not really black. That's how these people really think. Same if you're a woman. Same if you're an LGBT community. So let's see here. Here's a tweet from Snoop Dogg. The Coon Bunch. And it's a bunch of black conservatives. Now, if a white person would say that about a black person, they would be canceled immediately. But no one bats an eye when a left-wing black person says Uncle Tom or calls people coons like this. That's racism. That's what it is. And here's a big cultural hero of the left, right? No one will say a word, though. He'll still have a game show. He'll still be brought on all the cool shows on the cool networks. I'm sure if Biden wins, he'll be invited back to the White House like he was under Obama. You see how this works? I'm not one to embrace victimhood ideology or anything like that. But I'll tell you this. The people that get the most vitriol thrown at them, it's not people like me, right? Because I, in the intersectional or the cultural Marxist rankings, I'm in so many of the boxes that are oppressors. White, that's oppressor. Straight, that's oppressor. Married, that's oppressor. Christian, oppressor. Fat, oppressed, right? I guess I could embrace my fatness and claim people were body shaming me. Someone called me fat in this stream earlier. Oh, I'm a victim. But I don't. So because I'm in so many of those groups, they don't like me, but whatever. But if you're in one of those groups, if you're black, why do you think Candace Owens or Kanye West, Herman Cain, Ben Carson, why do they get so much heat? How about a woman like Sarah Palin, Kellyanne Conway? They say some of the most vile, sexist stuff to them. They'll say, I remember them having a discussion that said, in the debates, the way Trump was shaking Hillary's hand was misogynist. He needed to shake it in a way that wasn't him trying to use his masculinity, blah, blah, blah. The same people saying that would say some of the most vile crap you could imagine about Kellyanne Conway or about Sarah Palin. It's hilarious. Fat lives matter. Agreed. I'm just storing up for a cold winter. That's all. All right. A couple more. I'm going to skip the Ben Shapiro stuff. And I just want to focus on one more situation. This one's tough, right? But it goes to show you the priorities and what the world will look like when Black Lives Matter if they get what they want. So there was a situation in Atlanta. The same Wendy's where that Richard gentleman was shot by police. A man, by the way, who attacked police, stole their weapon, fired the weapon at the police officers, and then was shot and killed. In what I would call a good shooting. But because of the insanity that we live in now and all the institutions are dominated by Black Lives Matter interest, that police officer is now facing the death penalty. Anyways, at that same Wendy's, there have been armed protesters that have been there basically on a daily basis. There's also reports of Atlanta police that are so fed up with it calling off all the time. And so that's led to a sort of party-like atmosphere occurring around these Wendy's where people are being blockaded from entering and things like that. And sadly, last evening, an 8-year-old black girl was shot and killed. Now that black life doesn't matter enough to worth talking about, though. No one's going to talk about, my God, this is what happens when you drum the police out. This is what happened. By the way, no one's even going to mention, where's all the criticism of them violating social distancing? No one will mention that. You see, because it's not really about saving lives. It's not really about doing the right thing. It's about them achieving political power. And right now, the media and academia and Silicon Valley and the entertainment industry is allied with this. Only as far as it helps them continue to get power, though. So, you won't hear much about this. So let's look at a few tweets about it. A group of armed protesters blocked a car that was trying to turn into a parking lot near where Rayshard Brooks was shot, and someone in the crowd then shot into the car, killing an 8-year-old girl. The mass shooting in Atlanta happened at a block party. They were doing donuts and one of the cars hit another. That's what kicked it off. And I'll see if I can play the audio, but my computer's bad. Consider donating money to me so I can get my new computer. Let's hear some audio here. Hopefully, maybe. Oh boy. 1 second.
What the fuck happened to Pline shit? Man, these niggas just shooting to be shooting this shit. Y'all niggas tripping. Plies even got his shit shot. What the fuck? Niggas shot this shit. Man, what the fuck going on? This shit crazy.
One more, I think. I mean, it's almost... There's a picture of the girl. That's the shit you see. So she's dead. It was a 4-year-old, right, shot in Chicago. They don't care. They don't care at all. The media doesn't care. The people running Black Lives Matter don't care. Starbucks don't care. Kaepernick don't care. Nike don't care. This is what a world without police looks like. Now, I can't prove that that's exactly a Black Lives Matter protest that led to that. But that is a result of trying to have a society with defunded police, of attacking the police. And no one cares. And they're disingenuous. I bring this up. People bring it up all the time. Black Lives Matter. Why are you silent on the 7,000 or so black homicides a year that are committed by black people against other black people? Why are you silent on them? We talk about that. No, they don't. They don't put 1/10 the energy into talking about that. So here we go. Now I told people, and not just me, I'm no genius. Everybody could see that this would happen. Everybody knew it. Now you might say, but Rob, that's one person. Why is her life not as important as George Floyd's? I think the death of George Floyd was heinous. I, along with 95% of this country, said that it was absolutely abhorrent and that the officer should face justice. But are you telling me that George Floyd, with his history, he needs to be given sainthood and canonized more than this 8-year-old girl? Heck, I ain't even asking for sainthood. What? Can someone just acknowledge that their ridiculous ideology is what leads to this crap? How about the 14-year-old that was shot and killed in the Chad zone? That you could hear on audio them saying, oh, you're still alive, N-word, and then putting one in his temple. Whose dad then's on TV crying and saying, I still haven't got a call from the Seattle mayor. At least Trump called me. They don't care. And not only do they not care, they say if you don't endorse this, you somehow are a racist. It's unbelievable. How can you see a picture of a girl like that and not get tears in your eyes? Why was she there? Why did they have a girl like that there? Oh my God. Don't get me wrong. I believe in the idea of personal responsibility. I do. But both of the parties in this country have failed the inner city. My solution is to start treating people as individuals instead of identity politics. To say that, yes, there are sins of the past that were heinous in this country. Beyond words, slavery, Jim Crow, the internment of Japanese Americans in World War II, other terrible things. But we can't do anything about that now. All we could do is say, we're trying our best to go forward with the slate clean. The more we focus on sins of the past, the more it ends up getting twisted and contorted into that. Saw the Black Panthers marching in Seattle, wanting a black ethno-state, armed, saying they're ready for war. Great. Isn't that great? Heck, maybe, I've told you from the beginning, who does this benefit? Who does this racial division benefit? The establishment, who continues to screw over all working Americans, and hate groups on both sides. You don't think that the white nationalists right now aren't going, yes, we agree. We agree with the black nationalists. We agree. Absolutely. We should all have our own countries. Yep. Yes, thank you, Black Lives Matter. I played it for you before. Jared Taylor and Richard Spencer, both of which are white nationalists, said the biggest recruitment tool they have is Black Lives Matter. Because if you're some poor, rural white guy who's down on your luck, maybe addicted to drugs, had family members commit suicide, struggling to get by, can't find a job, and all you hear from all of our institution is, you're privileged, you're a scumbag, you need to do more to help the black community. It drives you right into the arms of someone saying, hey, we think that you're underprivileged, we'll take care of you, we'll help you. And so who does this benefit? Extremists on both sides of the ledger. And the establishment. Who does it screw over? All of the rest of the millions of us that just want to, regardless of our skin color, that just want a country. We want safety. We want to be able to work. That's who's getting screwed over. Yes, I hate Bezos. Jared Taylor is a white nationalist. He absolutely is. Notice I didn't say white supremacist. Jared Taylor, what I've seen of him, specifically advocates for countries, or if not countries, particularly areas of the country that are white only, areas that are black only, areas that are Hispanic only. That is a white nationalist. He is careful to say he is not a white supremacist, which I didn't call him. But I heavily disagree with his white nationalism. Right, umpires post. Weaponizing only certain cases in some communities. Massive help from the mainstream media establishment, politicians, special interests, etc. Absolutely. So, you take anything from the show tonight, it's this. Here's the two main points I had. One, we are seeing the left more and more show their hatred for this country. Not everyone on the left, but because the people controlling the left and the establishment, all of these institutions are now on board with this. It encourages more extremist behavior. And there will be more deaths. The woman who died with the car that hit her. By the way, I didn't even talk about that story. Right? Black gentleman, I believe, of Somalian heritage, hit, I believe, a transgender woman because they had a highway blocked and he swerved and tried to miss him, hit and killed the woman. The story then, once they realized, ooh, we can't say white guy kills Black Lives Matter protester because it was a black guy. So then it was luxury car strikes Black Lives Matter because they want to. Why did they say luxury car? What was the importance of that to the story? Well, they want to get it in your brain. Luxury must be a wealthy person. Oh, probably a rich white guy hit a Black Lives Matter protester. Yeah, that's not what happened. But they're not news. They're not journalists. They're propagandists. So of course, that's what they're going to do. So that's the first thing. They're now showing their colors how much they really hate this country. And the other thing that I want to... Thank you, Vita. I really appreciate it. What do I think about Stefan Molyneux being banned by YouTube? Horrible. I think that at the exact same time, you're seeing the attacks on the First and the Second Amendment increase dramatically leading into the election. I've done videos on this. They want you unarmed. They don't want the National Guard to come in if the police are overwhelmed. They don't want the police to be able to defend you. And they don't want you to be able to defend yourself. So that's what's going on with the Second Amendment. At the exact same time, we see the biggest Trump Reddit page, the Donald, get kicked off. We see Carpe Donktum, who makes memes on Twitter, get kicked off. We see Donald Trump's Twitch page kicked off. We see Stefan Molyneux kicked off YouTube, all within the span of like 2 days. Multiple platforms kicking off prevalent conservative voices. They're coming for your First Amendment and your Second Amendment at the exact same time. And I don't even care what specifically Stephen Molyneux said that they supposedly kicked him off for. I don't agree with everything Stephen said, nor have I watched him a lot. I'll tell you, you know who the most of the Stephen Molyneux videos I watched aren't political in the least bit. He used to have this guy on his show called Dr. Duke Pesta, and that was the first time I heard of Stephen Molyneux, because what it was they would talk 2 hours about a Shakespeare play and the philosophy behind it. It wasn't political at all. And they did it with like Lord of the Rings and stuff. I thought that was cool. And then I saw a couple other Stephen's videos. So I can't tell you what all of his positions are. But he didn't seem like someone advocating violence as far as I saw. So I don't know why he was kicked off. But yeah, I think it's despicable. And we should all be speaking up more about this, because if you're silent when they... Again, I've said this over and over. Why have I been spared? Well, one, I'm demonetized and people get unsubscribed from me, and I'm not promoted on any of the platforms, basically. So I'm trying my best to grow my channel. I think I'm doing all right. I had 40 people watching tonight. That's awesome. So I think I'm doing all right. But the moment I become effective is when they will cancel me. That's when it will happen. So I've been spared because I'm relatively small. Gavin McInnes is another one. Oh, but he was in the Proud Boys, so... I never saw... Gavin McInnes condemned individual Proud Boys that did individual bad things. As a movement, he said it was basically a fraternity, and they were just sick and tired of seeing left-wing agitators beat the crap out of conservatives at rallies. I agree with him. Now, I disagree with the idea of purposely going out and looking for a fight. But if you're defending yourself, that's another thing. I've also seen Proud Boys kind of LARP and set up these kind of showdowns with Antifa people. I think that's dumb. I have no support for that. And I've seen individual Proud Boys act poorly in individual videos. But I didn't see Gavin McInnes doing anything like that. I saw him say a couple of racially insensitive jokes. Don't care. Don't care when people say insensitive jokes on the left. My track record will back it up completely. I defend comedians and people telling jokes on the left, no matter how heinous I find them, every single time. Including Kathy Griffin, including Al Franken. Every single time I've defended them. So I'm not going to condemn Gavin McInnes for that. So yeah, I think it was outrageous that he was cut off. InfoWars, right, that's another. I heard Atheist is Unstoppable, which I never watched the show that much, but I heard he was a conservative that also got the boot from YouTube. So what, I mean, it's crazy. So yeah, the first thing is you're seeing the left kind of, the establishment left push how much they hate this country more and more every day. And they're offering you a deal, right? I saw Bill Kristol say this. If you want to see these riots and this extremism that you're seeing from the left go away, vote for Joe Biden. Same with coronavirus fear, right? That's the game they're playing. That's called terrorism. Hey, vote for us into political power. And if not, we're going to use violence and intimidation and every tool we can to silence you, to shut you up, to make your life hell until the next election. And then we'll say, hey, you better vote for us. You want 4 more years of us beating you and making your life hell? Then you better vote for us. Sorry, I'm not going to give in to terrorism, Bill Kristol, supposed conservative. If you want to fight against culture, if you want to fight against Marxist revolutionaries, just vote the Marxist revolutionaries in. Then they won't be so revolutionary. There's a big brain take. The other thing is, to the people that are afraid to speak out against Black Lives Matter because they're afraid of being called a racist, remember, they want to destroy the nuclear family, and that's where you could criticize them. It has nothing to do with race. It's disgusting. Now, you could just be like me and criticize the whole leadership of it because even the racial aspect of it's garbage, but if you are afraid to do so or whatever, criticize, especially our Republican leaders that are cowards, criticize their wanton destruction of the very thing that would help the black community more than anything, which is the nuclear family. All right. So, he's a white nationalist Democrat? I have no clue, D. Gulag. I've never really watched any of his videos. I just knew that someone that I once did a video with, or had his video on Atheism is Unstoppable, and then told me later, yeah, his channel got canceled. I was like, for what? I don't know. So, all right. So, nearing the end of the show, a couple things. One, if you could consider donating to me on any platform, I'd really appreciate it. I hate to have to ask for that every night, but I am a poor person. I am having a baby for the first time, and I do have crappy equipment that I'm running, which means that I lag all the time. It's hard for me to have guests on and things like that. So I purchased a computer, and now I've been told that it's not going to get here for a long time, but I still have to pay for it. So consider supporting me. You do throw in Super Chat on YouTube. Lemons on D Live is one of the best ways. because I get 100% of that money, so that's a good reason to join D Live. But you could also support me on Patreon or PayPal, and if you want, you could also directly email me, and I could give you like my post office box number or something like that to donate through that way. Thank you for the congrats on the baby. I'm very excited. So I'll keep you all posted as we go with that. I forgot I was going to wear a shirt this week for one of my videos. I got my first dad shirt, so I was pleased with that. So, and again, if you want to email me anything, it's rob.noor@gmail.com. So, yeah, having a kid will be the greatest. It's something we've tried for a long time, so I'm excited. I'm extremely honored. Thank you, everyone. The other thing is that I wanted to mention, my show might be late tomorrow night, and the reason is that I will be on. Let's see if I can find the channel to put the link. I'll be on Dylan Burns TV on Twitch. Okay, so I'll put the link. I'll put the link in the chat here. And I will be debating. I don't want to say their name yet because I haven't. Let me see. I don't know exactly. Sometimes when you're talking. Oh, Mel. Okay. She says Mel. That's fine then. It's one of the weird things. Like, some of the people you work with don't want to use the real names. I certainly, no matter if you agree or disagree with me, I'm not trying to out someone. So whatever you want me to call you, I'll call you. You know, if you're, obviously a pseudonym like, the Big Pig or something like that, I'll call you the Big Pig. I don't care, whatever you want me to call you. So I wanted to make sure before I said her name. So yeah, I'll be debating a woman named Mel who wants to talk about intersectionality. So that'll be at that channel at 8 o'clock tomorrow. So it's supposed to go 2 to 3 hours. If it goes 3 hours, I'll do my show immediately after, but I might not be starting till 11. Now, here's why I would suggest, this is the last thing I'll say. I would recommend, or not recommend, if you wanted to come to his channel and support me, I would really appreciate it. Because here's how these things typically go. We'll probably have a big audience. 95% of the audience will be against me, which is fine. I don't mind that. And I like talking to people that disagree with me. So that's fine. But I can say that although a good portion of those people that are against me will be doing so in good faith and will be fine, there is a growing outreach, I feel, of people, particularly that are supporting in a group there, that are now following me on multiple social media channels, calling me racist and things like that. And that'll be the bulk of what I'm hearing from a lot of these people. So I noticed, for example, that I put my video up saying that it's war, which it is, and I recommend you check out that video. It's like a 7-minute video or a 9-minute video, 9.5 minutes, inspired by Andrew Breitbart, just talking about what I'm sick and tired of being called by the establishment left. And the response I got to posting it on Twitter by one of the persons that I was engaged in one of these debates was, he knows I just want to say the N-word. And then mysteriously, a bunch of people who also seem to like and follow him on Twitter, one after another, started posting on my tweets. Bam, 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 bam. No one really had much to say. And I was like, that's fine. You guys say what you want. And you saw, we had someone on YouTube today that came on and was making very similar arguments just about my appearance or about how I'm a racist or whatever. So there'll be a lot of that over there. So if you could go, if you're not doing anything at 8 tomorrow and you have Twitch, you could follow me. Again, I'll put that link up. It's Dylan Burns TV. Dylan's a socialist, I believe, left-winger. He's been fair to me as a moderator, though. So it'll be me debating Mel on intersectionality. And so I hope it's a good debate. I think we'll strongly disagree, but hopefully we do so in good faith and it doesn't become, calling each other immoral or anything like that. Andrew Breitbart is fantastic. He's one of my heroes too. I wish he was still alive today. Thank you, Rational. I'm glad you liked that video. So yeah, if you can't make it over to Dylan Burns TV, I will be recording. I'm not going to live stream it, but I will be recording it, and I'll probably then the day after put that debate up on the channel. I think it'll be an interesting debate because I talked about this in my Roadside Rambling. I think what's likely to happen is people ask me, why do you go debate people that, like, I think I could be wrong, and I'm trying to go in with no prejudgments, but I think just from listening to Mel, I haven't looked into her channels or anything like that. I think that she is a Marxist, a Leninist, and so clearly we're going to be people that are very much in disagreement. And I think that you might be shocked at what gets said in a lot of these insular communities. And Twitch, at least the areas of Twitch that I've been on, where I've been going on to debate, is extremely left-wing. And when you see when it's a bunch of people with a bunch of people that agree with them and only one or two disagreeing, it's kind of amazing what that sort of echo chamber allows people to say. I guess one could say the same thing of me. Maybe they say, my goodness, look at the things Rob says on his channel when there's a bunch of his supporters there. But I'm more than happy to show everything I'm saying. Like, I'm very happy with my positions, and I wish that everyone could hear them, But over there, I think oftentimes that you could hear the real truth of what people really think. I've heard incredible things in the past 2 weeks. Toddlers should be able to vote. Okay, I mean, that one's just weird. There is no such thing as personal property. You're not entitled to you don't own anything. That was one that I heard. Or we should not be arresting people for small crimes. If you jump the subway turnstile, don't arrest them. It's the cop's fault for trying to arrest them if violence ensues. I mean, things that you're just like, wow. Out and out embracement of Marxism. Just total. It's more common than not to embrace Marxism, I think, in the channels that I've been on. So I'll record it and I'll play it and I'll put it on my channel. And, you could see I'm not going to convince Mel that intersectionality is wrong or that capitalism's good. That won't happen. I say this all the time. There's basically 5 groups of people that are in your audience. People that really agree with you almost no matter what, and people that disagree with you almost no matter what. So Mel will probably be in that section. Maybe I'll try to get a few concessions. And who knows? Maybe she'll be able to convince me. I'm going in good faith. Maybe she'll be able to convince me of some of her positions. But probably not likely to happen. But then there's people that'll lean towards my side or lean against me. Those people you could convince of things. And then there's people that just are ignorant, not in a bad way, but just don't know what you're talking about, or they're indifferent. So that's what the audience is. So that's why I talk to people on the other side. And also, if you're unwilling to talk to people on the other side, then you can't be surprised when they're unwilling to talk to you. So I understand that there's a lot of censorship that goes on the left, on campuses and things like that. I refuse to be part of that. So I'll talk to people that disagree with me, because I'm not going to be part of that silencing of voices. So yeah, it should be a good time. So yeah, people have lost their minds. It's and it has to do with the indoctrination of academia, I think, is a lot of it. And also there's this idea that debate and argument and disagreement's wrong. And so when you just get this one narrative shoved in your head over and over and over, you're getting it in the gaming community. Because a lot of these people are gamers. That's what Twitch is. So they play a lot of games. So they're getting it in that community, and they're getting it in schools, right? And they're getting it from their mainstream media, and they're getting it from the personalities they watch online. And so they emulate, oh, yeah, I agree with that. And I've read these 3 books, and so I understand. And you end up adopting these positions. It's like, well, there's no such thing as personal property. Like, okay, So I think it's important for someone, if you got to send a canary in the coal mine, I'm happy to do it. I'll go in there, I'll record it, and I'll show you what they're saying. And I recommend, if you're interested in that type of thing, check out the debates that I've posted. You'll see. I go in there, I try to be completely cordial. I try, I'm not going to say I don't raise my voice, but I'm fallible like anyone, but I try to not do so unless I'm reciprocating, and just see how quick it is until I'm called a racist. If you're watching me, you know I'm not a racist. You know I'm not. You've seen me over and over and over prove that I'm not, but if I don't agree with Black Lives Matter, I must be a racist. If I don't agree with intersectionality, then I must not care about insert group, and it's just not true. So also, hopefully Mel's more read up on intersectionality than me. I would say, as someone who's so vehemently endorsing it, she probably is. So maybe she'll say I have some misconceptions that we'll work through. But I know a decent amount of what intersectionality is. I'll see if she'll define it, try to make her define her terms. But I think we'll be talking about feminism, trans rights, critical race theory, things like that. So you want me to start over? Good news, you'll be able to replay the video here in a minute. So yeah, it should be a fun debate. So I'll put it up one more time tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern. Dylan Burns TV on Twitch. But then you'll be able to catch that debate the next day, because I'll record it and then upload it as is. I won't make any edits unless there would be something really against TNC, which won't be from me. So some of those people were very angry when they were debating. Yeah, I mean, look, WZ, it's a tactic, right? A lot of the impressive sounding nature of someone when they're advocating the extreme position comes from their performance, and the performance always looks better if it seems more passionate. And so I learned this in policy debate when I would go in and, let's say the topic was corn subsidies. So I'd speak first and I'd be like 9 minutes of here's why we should decrease corn subsidies. And the first question asked me after my speech would be, why haven't you acknowledged your white privilege? And then they would speak and they would basically call me a racist. And then I would say, if you want to have a conversation about race, fine. I'm not going to let you call me a racist. I'm just going to walk out the door. And then once they were unable to call you a racist, they lost a lot of that passion. Mel, by the way, if you watch that WZ, Mel was the person that said that I was dog whistling to white supremacy on the last debate. And so then I had to kind of get a little animated and say, I refuse to allow people to call me racist or say that I'm dog whistling to racism. And that if you're not, I was being polite the entire time. And if you don't want to engage me in a good faith debate, then I'll just leave. And I think that it worked because she apologized to me and said, okay. So I think we'll be talking about dog whistling as well. But, it'll get heated. I'm sure it will. And I will screw up as far as I'll reciprocate being heated. So I got to try to remind myself, just even if someone's calling me racist, to forcefully push back and say I'm not going to deal with that. But do so in a way that I'm not screaming my head off. So we'll see how it goes. But it should be fun. Either way. So anyways, even if I get crushed in the debate, the recording will be up on my channel. So again, 8 p.m. Eastern tomorrow, and I apologize if that debate runs long and I'm then late doing my live stream tomorrow. So I will still do my live stream tomorrow. It'll probably have a lot to do with what's said in that debate, so that will be starting probably between 10:30 and 11 p.m. I'm sure after that debate I'll have to go to the bathroom, get a drink or something like that, but then I'll be on as soon as it's over. So thank you so much. I appreciate all of your support. If you can support me financially, I put the links above as to how you could do that. If you can't, totally cool. I don't do this show to make money. I have a full-time job. I work 70, 80 hours a week. Don't get me wrong. I'm broke and money's good. But if I never get a dime, I'm still going to do this show. And so please don't feel obligated to donate or anything like that. If you want to help in other ways, you could like and subscribe to my channels, different platforms. I got YouTube. I got DLive, I'm on Locals, I'm on BitChute, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Twitch. So you could subscribe to me in those places. And maybe if you really wanted to help, you could share some of my smaller videos. I would really appreciate that. So thank you so much, everyone. It was a really fun show tonight. I had a good time. Enjoyed the audience interaction. It's always nice when I get some troll calling me fat on here. There's got to be better fat jokes, am I right? I mean, come on. By the way, I put out a video asking people to fat shame me. I really did, because I do need to lose weight before I'm a dad here. So I got my wife's due in early January. So I'd like to actually, not being a complete fat oaf when my baby's born. So I am going to try to get in shape. So my birthday was yesterday. I will admit I had a little too much cake today. But starting tomorrow, I'm going to try to be eating much healthier and try to keep that promise to myself. So feel free to call me fat. Doesn't bother me at all. So am I on Parler? I did start a Parler account. I think it's just Normal America with Rob Nord, but I've only put like 2 or 3 things up there. So, but I've heard bad things about Parler already, censoring people and stuff. I don't know if that's true. Can't be any worse than Twitter, I guess. So, but yeah, I am on Parler. Normal America with Rob Nord there. Also on BitChute. I didn't mention that, but I'm on there as well. So, all right, everyone. Thanks so much for your support. Really appreciate it. Got to get to bed tonight. Everybody, thank you so much. I'm humbled that any... I'll get sympathy with... Yeah, I hope not. I know. I'm really going to try. Feel free if I look like I'm ballooning up to let me know. It won't hurt my feelings at all. So thank you so much, everyone. I'm humbled that anyone wants to listen to me, let alone the great audience I have. I really, really appreciate it. I really do. And to those of you that, if I didn't get to your comments, or maybe if you emailed me and I didn't get to it, please re-email me. I try to get back to everyone, but sometimes it's tough having a work schedule and a life and stuff like that. So I hope you all understand. But thank you all so much. And as always, have a good one.